Brazilian president has dialed PM Modi, and this of course comes a day after Lula da Silva, the Brazilian president, snubbed the US President Donald Trump over the ongoing tariff tiff. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Brazil's President Lula da Silva on Thursday agreed to enhance cooperation on trade, technology, energy, defense, agriculture, health, and of course people-to-people ties. Now, this comes days after US President Donald Trump imposed additional 25% tariffs on India, taking the total to 50%. What's important in this story is that Brazil too faces 50% tariffs from the United States. While the US President Trump said that the Brazilian president could call him anytime, the Brazilian president maintained his stance on preferring to call other leaders like PM Modi and said that the US president is not willing to talk. Let's in fact listen in to what the Brazilian president had to say.
Vocês pensam, eu não vou ligar para o Trump para comercial não, porque ele não quer falar. Mas pode ficar certo, Marina. Eu vou ligar para o Trump para convidá-lo para vir para a COP, porque eu quero saber o que ele pensa da questão climática. Vou ter a gentileza de ligar. Vou ligar para ele, vou ligar para o Xi Jinping, vou ligar para o primeiro-ministro Modi, vou ligar. Só não vou ligar para o Putin, porque o Putin não está podendo viajar. Mas vou ligar para muitos presidentes. Cara, vem aqui.
For bringing us more on this story is Yuria Fansali, senior journalist, joining us straight from Brazil. Now, of course, we heard the soundbite of what exactly the Brazilian president had to say. Now, help us understand that what exactly is a signal or a message that the Brazilian president is sending to the world when he chooses to call PM Modi instead of calling Donald Trump, who explicitly said that the Brazilian president could call him anytime.
Well, good morning, everyone. If Trump's intention with these tariffs was to weaken the BRICS, as the result might be actually the opposite. One of the main criticisms of the BRICS has always been that the group brings together countries with very different goals. Russia and China have long been aligned in their ambition to challenge US-dominated world order. Brazil and India, on the other hand, joined the bloc not to attack the West, but to gain more visibility and more influence, to push for reforms in global institutions and have more space at the table. Their approach was never about harming the West, but about reshaping the system to be more inclusive. That's why this move from Trump might end up doing the one thing that the BRICS had always trouble achieving, giving the group a shared political purpose. By hitting both Brazil and India with tariffs, Trump is pushing them toward closer alignment with China and Russia inside the bloc. Countries that already saw the US as a threat. A group that often struggled to speak with one voice now finds itself facing a common challenge coming straight from Washington. And that political effect is coming on top of growing economic ties. Today, Lula and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about boosting trade between their countries. And there's already talk of India opening its market to more products from Mercosur, which includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay and Uruguay. In other words, Trump's move is accelerating South-South cooperation and encouraging countries like Brazil and India to work even more closely together. So in the end, this strategy might backfire. It reinforces the idea that the United States is no longer a predictable or reliable partner, and it gives the BRICS exactly what they lacked, a political reason to act together, not necessarily to attack the West, but to build an alternative, and that's a message that goes far beyond just tariffs. That's why President Lula wanted to call Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Absolutely. You've also mentioned that, well, instead of creating a divide in the BRICS, and of course President Trump has explicitly spoken against the BRICS time and again. Help us understand that you're essentially trying to say that this instead would help the BRICS come together. Now, how realistically, what sort of an opposition can the BRICS sort of form or sort of portray when it comes to the US and of course its rising US protectionism?
Well, I think it could strengthen especially the group as a unity. If there's if the group has so far been seen as a group of countries that have basically nothing to do with one another, you have a country in Africa, South Africa, you have Brazil in Latin America, China and India in Asia, and also new members that are now that are partners to the bloc. Now I think we start to see not a group that is only gathered by common economic interests, but also groups that are sending a political message that the West, the US especially, will no longer dictate which rules are followed. And I think that's very important when we see a world when there's a crisis of the international organizations, such as the UN, such as the World Trade Organization. So I think when these countries that are so different from one another start to feel the effects of the same, right. I won't say the United States. I think it's a way that they can strengthen their own voice.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those details with us.